wondering if you'd had time to read the report I gave to you the meeting that night.
I read it that night, I guess. Later on, I can't say I read it word for word, but I've read, obviously a lot of the aftermath.
You care to tell me wherein I am seriously wrong and mistaken?
Well, I think I'll just stand on the report that they did. I mean, obviously, the Star report covers a lot of ground, and people disagree with its conclusions, including yourself, and that's fine and fair. But I'll just stand by that, I guess.
Yeah, but standing by, I mean, there's some, I wrote that thing saying, there's some things here that have to be explained, and that is, why did the OIC ignore the eyewitness testimony of that? I mean, how do you prove? Well, the question really is, okay, how do you prove that Foster's car was in the park before his body was? What's your evidence?
Well, I'm not going to debate.
No, it's not a debate. It's just a question. I mean,
I know.
Tell me, what is the evidence?
Well, I'm just going to stand by the report on that. But
the report doesn't answer that question.
The report does talk about, what all the various people in the park.
Yeah, it says that none of them had anything to. All those people in the park had nothing to do with Foster's death. Okay?
But it does point out what C2 saw in the park. It doesn't ignore the car that he saw. So, I mean, that's.
It says very little about what he saw.
I know, but it says it.
Yeah, but it doesn't make the point. I mean, the point is intellectual honesty, integrity. I mean, I've talked to a lot of people about this, attorneys and others. Intellectual integrity would require an investigator to put down what these people said, what they saw.
But I think it says there.
And what is totally ignored is what Duty and Feist said they saw.
No, we put that in.
No, it is not in there. It is not in there.
Well,
it is absolutely Duty and Feist absolutely ignored. I've got a chart. I've got a table I can show you.
You can probably
nothing on all of these things about the color of the car, the age of the car. None of that is described.
I'll have to look at it. But I know C2, he saw that's described. What you don't like, and I understand this, and so I'm not going to get defensive or offensive, is that you think those facts lead to a certain conclusion, and the report suggests that those facts do not necessarily lead to any conclusion other than, inconsistent with the ultimate findings. So that's just a debate about what inferences you would take from the facts that are there compared to the inferences taken by the report, which is fine. People disagree about that all the time. I mean, the Star report seems definitive, and not definitive, you wouldn't agree, but at least thorough in discussing the physical evidence and why it's unlikely what was in the scene in the parking lot contradicts any of that. I think that's the actual phrasing that's used. But there's nothing. I didn't think there was anything ignored. I'll go back and look at that though.
If you will check, you will find that there is no description of the evidence that strongly suggests that the car was not in the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that evidence is
isn't the color as described by C2? That's indicated, I believe, which is not the same color.
I will. If you'll just hold on a second, I think I'll answer that question for you.
Brown, rust-colored. I mean, it's all about the inferences. Obviously, obviously one inference is the car he saw is the same car. Another inference is that it's not. I mean, those are, and you take the one inference and the report.
Okay, I've got the page here.
Mm-hmm.
Unidentified persons and cars. The evidence establishes that at least 3 cars belonging to civilians were in and around Fort Marcy parking lot when the Park Police first arrived. Mr. Foster's gray Honda Accord with Arkansas tags. The white Nissan with Maryland tags driven by C4, and 3 the broken down blue Mercedes driven by C6. The 3 cars belonging to Mr. Foster, C4 and C6, the only cars positively identified and known to the law enforcement officers in the OIC that were in the Fort Marcy parking lot in the time of 6 to 8:30 p.m. Time frame.
No, you disagree with that, I gather.
How?
Do you disagree with that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the evidence is that when the fire engine first got there, there was another car there. There was a brown car.
Look, the report was trying to be honest about a few things, and that people had complained about with this report, and one of them was the fact that there were these cars, and people saw different cars and different people, and I thought the report at least laid it out there so that people can say that.
But it doesn't really. The only thing, look, let's take, on page 69 is what I'm looking at. You say 3 cars belonging to C4, C6, the only cars positively identified, etc. C2 saw a man in the car next to him. Doesn't say anything here about the color, the age, anything that C2 strongly believes very strongly that the car he saw was not Mr. Foster's car. That's not in here. There's nowhere in here.
It says it's a different color than the Foster car.
No, it doesn't.
It says a brown or rust color. That's in a different spot where his description of the car is.
I'll have to. My recollection is that is not the case.
Well, I'll check it too, because
I'll have to go back and
I'll have to check what ended up in the final version.
Because the thing this is what is, I'd say, is intellectually dishonest about the report, is that it does not lay out the fact that Duty, Feist, and Knowlton were all describing what would certainly appear to be a different car than.
Well, what about the people, I mean, this gets to a problem, what about the people who seemed clearly to see Foster's car and described it as brown?
There were a few people. I made a record of the colors.
So people were screwed up on the colors, period. Even the people who saw what
that's what put me off when I first read the FBI reports, because I'm not good on remembering colors, and naturally you infer from your own characteristics that other people are probably like similar. So what I inferred from the FBI 3...
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Hey, I have to go to lunch. I have a 12:30 lunch, but I'll talk to you again. I want to look, I haven't read this thing in 3 months, but I want to look at it again on a couple of these things, but I'll talk to you again.
Take a look at it, and I will...
I want to try to persuade you that at least, the report put in there the things from which people can draw different inferences, and I can't argue with your inferences, but I want to try to at least indicate that the report tried to put in there.
Well, if you got a little time to do it, go over this report I gave you.
I will.
And say, okay, wrong, or so. If I've made some mistakes, I'd like to know about them.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll correct them. I do believe in accuracy, and
I understand.
And so let's talk again. I'll take you to lunch one of these days.
Okay, good. I will call you back.
Okay, Brett.
All right, thanks.
Excellent.
Hello?
Hey, Brett.
Yes.
It's Reed.
How are you?
Good. Did you get my facts?
I got your facts.
And you have any comment?
Do I have any comment? No, I don't.
I guess you got the report. I sent you the full report that I did on the car situation.
Yeah, I think so.
No, I gave it to you that night, as a matter of fact. You said you were going to study it, and we'd get together and discuss all those gruesome details.
Well, we discussed a lot of them, didn't we?
No, we didn't really do it. We didn't get into any substantive discussion. I'm dying to find out what grievous errors I have made in my analysis.
Grievous errors. Well, I don't have any comment on your letter, and I'm Well, I have to figure out a time to do that because I'm kind of swamped.
Yeah.
Not that I'm...
Well, the letter's sort of brief, and it's sort of a summary of the...
I wasn't thinking of the letter.
The long report.
Yeah. But again, it all comes...
Am I nuts or what?
No, well, it all comes down to that brown car issue, right? If you think it's a different car.
Well, it isn't just the brownishness of it. It's also the age of it. You know, this is what I didn't get onto this until I put that report out, because the FBI, in reporting on their interview with Patrick Knowlton, said that he had identified the car as being brown, but they also said that he had identified it as being a 1989 to 91 model.
Right, and in fact,
which was false.
Right.
And, so I thought, well, gee, I'm being not very good at colors myself. People can obviously get colors wrong, but to get both the color and the age wrong is a little bit different matter. Plus the fact that Knowlton has a lot of detail in addition to the color and age, the differences in the cars. For example, the Foster car had decals on it. It had a Vanderbilt decal. It had a TCU parking sticker and so on. All things that had some damage done to the right rear quarter, I believe, and all things like that he insisted were not on the car that he saw. So, what do you think?
Well, I think our report tried to take all that into account. Now, it didn't. You, I know, don't think it went sufficiently into those issues, but I think the investigation and report tried to just make the most reasonable judgment that could be made based on the facts. And that's not to say that other people can't disagree with the inferences. I do think it was important that on the color issue, which is different from the age issue, as I told you, and you know as well as anyone, that people who were there after all the police and medical personnel were in the park also described it as brown. So,
well, I think maybe one or two did.
I think there are a couple.
One of them was...
They're all cited in that footnote. But anyway, I just think the color issue doesn't take you that far. Do our best.
But the question that I would pose to you is this, that what evidence do you have that the car was in the parking lot at 4:30 and at 5:30? That his Foster's car was in the parking lot.
Well, I guess some of it depends on whether we know there was a car there, and I guess the question is whether that. So there's evidence of that.
What evidence do you have that that was Foster's car?
Other than that, no one saw it being moved out, and that it had Arkansas plates. I'd have to go back to the report again and give you a full answer on that. But I guess that's an unanswerable question. Other than you say, hey, they saw a car that's a Honda that's kind of older with Arkansas plates that's described in a color very similar to the color it is.
Not very similar. Not very similar.
Well, okay.
One was light gray and one was rust brown. Or not.
It's not really light gray. It's kind of dark. But that's somewhat irrelevant. And so you piece that together with everything else that you have with when people actually do arrive on the police and medical personnel, and you try to fit it all together from that.
And how do you evaluate the brown car that was seen in the parking lot by those personnel when they arrived?
There seems to be some slight disagreement also on just exactly what the facts are, but when I'm talking about the facts, the real concrete facts, but then the real disagreement's just over your interpretation of the facts and what significance you would give to certain things in the big mix of evidence, and that's fair enough, but I don't like the idea that there's, anything was covered up in that report. It was simply, you disagree with the interpretations, and that's fine. But I think tried to put the raw materials in there so people like you could reach your contrary.
Well, that's where I differ with you. If you people that have only read that report get no picture whatever of this, what the facts are, what the witnesses actually said about those cars. Well, they spend more time on the car that the guy from the CIA saw turning into the parking lot that he decided was not Foster's car.
Right.
You actually devote more space to that than you do to saying what Knowlton saw and what Duty and Price saw. Because
no, it's about a paragraph for each of them, I think. And
no, you go into it. No, it's a couple of sentences. I mean, they say there's virtually nothing there about the color of the car, the age of the car. You do have a footnote.
I think the color and the footnotes go into detail.
No.
I have to look at it again. I'm violating my first rule, Reed, which is talking to you without having carefully reviewed it right before I talk to you.
Well, I've got a chart that I prepared, which I showed. I went over this, and I prepared this chart, showing what was said in the reports, your report and the Fisk report, about the color, the age, the gloss, and other features of the car. And the significant thing is that when it comes down to your report, these are nothing. And that raises a question. Well, why? I mean, if all we're doing is you want to present the facts, why were these rather interesting to me and to other people? Why were these interesting facts not mentioned?
Yeah. Well, they weren't. First of all, I know we were knew about all of that because G. Sprunt's report went into excruciating detail on the cars, and had a good appendix on all the different descriptions, and obviously we sorted all that out too and tried to put in there. But why don't you do me a favor and send me what you did on the chart? I'd be curious to.
Sure, I'll be happy to.
Although I don't refresh my memory daily on this, as you can tell, I do like to keep up with what's being said out there.
Yeah.
And I will be happy to take a look at anything chart like that you've prepared, and then talk to you again.
Yeah, well, you think, let me ask you this, I sent that letter up to the New York Post. I'm going to call the editor shortly here this afternoon. He was supposed to call me today because the letter's editor said that it would be in the paper today, and it wasn't. And we've got all these people on the conservative side who are determined to try to make me and others appear to be nuts because we pursue this case. I mean, what is your opinion? Do you think it's there's something terribly wrong about ventilating these the stuff I put in this letter? I mean,
I don't know. I don't want to get into that. Name calling and all that. People, each person's got to do it.
No, it isn't a matter of name calling. The question is there, in your view, a reasonable ground for discussion and debate about these matters, or is, as those who have not studied anything about the case insist, hey, this case is closed. I mean, Podolsky hasn't studied anything about it.
Right.
So he writes an editorial saying, case closed. I mean, Starr gave us the answers, that's it.
Well, I think, obviously I worked in that office, and I believe in the report. So from the perspective of the office, I think that is the conclusion. Whether it's reasonable for people outside to just buy into that completely, I don't want to get into that, but we try to do the best job we can, recognizing that there's not a perfect reconstruction, which I think we pointed out pretty far up front in the report. And I just don't want to get into whether it's appropriate or not.
But would you?
Some people did look closely at it, though, Reed. I think some of the reporters in the immediate aftermath did go through it pretty carefully. Now, some others, I will grant you, just kind of say it.
Can you name anybody that went through it carefully?
Well, it's certainly
presented at the Conservative Leadership conference in October, and he was totally unprepared. Totally unprepared.
Did he show up?
Oh, sure he did.
Yeah.
Sure he did. He showed up, and what I did was talk about the things I'd raised with you, talk about
The cars, yeah.
took him, and it wasn't as though he...
Well, you're going to say I'm totally unprepared, but you're catching me off guard when I'm trying to work on a product liability brief here.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry about take away from your more important things.
I'm not saying that. I'm just needling you.
But the only thing you've got, is the Arkansas tag. Is the Arkansas tags. That's the one thing you.
Well, it's also a Honda or a Honda type car, and the color is not like you said it's a red car or it's a green car or something like that. So
you had you
had the brown that color.
The agents had Patrick Knowlton up. They showed him the color. Color. He pinned it down as being rust brown, and he did not know when he said that color, those colors were only used in 1983 and 1984. He didn't know that. Could have been that they were not used until 1989. I mean, I know Patrick. I don't know how much time you've spent with him, but Patrick is. He made notes at the time of what he saw. It's not something that 6 months later he's calling up because
he called right away.
Thought about it in 6 months. And I'm impressed by this guy's. He's organized. He's got a good memory, and he's very sharp. And he's also very, the agents were not able to budge him. This is what I saw. You're not going to get me to say I saw something else. So he's very strong. Duty and Price, they're more problematic because what they say now is they don't remember anything.
Right.
I think that's why it would be. We need a little more transparency here. We need to get from your investigation do what Fisk did, and that is make the documents available and let's see what's said. And this is, of course, it only heightens suspicion when we're still getting. We've got a suit against all the investigative agencies under the FOIA, and we get stuff from the FBI. Everything's blacked out, and it's given Rule 7A that divulging this would interfere with an ongoing investigation when there isn't any ongoing investigation. So that's the other important question. Why in the hell doesn't Starr release the documents, make them available for inspection? Why you got to fight?
Let me ask you two questions. What's the current status of Knowlton's case that he had going to?
Well, it's before Judge Penn. They've had two conferences with the judge, and he moves at a glacial pace.
Glacial is generous. He is a slowpoke.
They're busily preparing more massive documents to throw into it if and when he ever gives the signal to go ahead for discovery. But they've gone over your report line by line.
Oh, I'm sure. Yes, I know. Well, I know you. Everyone knew that was going to happen with some of you guys. What's Sprunt been up to? Is he doing anything more?
Well, Sprunt is right now engaged in writing a review for me of Dan Moldea's book.
Oh yeah, which I have not seen yet.
Yeah.
I gather that buys into the Starr conclusion, though.
Oh well, that's what it was written for, wasn't it?
Look, we don't have that much power.
Well, of course, Ruddy's theory is that since Regnery is a friend of Starr's Way, he wanted to do a favor for his buddy and get a book out to him. He's absolutely right. The trouble is, I like Dan, and I gave him a lot of help, but he has done a pretty sloppy job.
Hey, I heard you saw Azar at some event recently.
Oh, he was at the Regnery 50th anniversary.
Yeah, he said you started growing.
I tried to intimidate him.
You know Kavanaugh?
He didn't crack. He didn't say that.
He relayed the encounter to me. He said it was fairly humorous.
I didn't realize that his wife was a Stan Evans product. So we have hopes of getting something out of her one day.
Exactly. Getting the truth out of her, huh? All right, well, why don't you send me that thing? I'll look at it. Obviously, as I've told you before, the report's the report, and I'm not surprised you disagree, but I think it's more on the interpretation. But why don't you just send me what you have, and I'll, at some point here,
you still have my basic document analysis of the report.
Yeah.
What you don't have is I didn't put in there the chart that shows.
Resend me the analysis, too, because I put that...
You put it aside. Okay, well, I'll send you another. I got lots of copies.
Yeah. And I'll look at it. You don't tape these calls, do you, Reed?
Are you kidding?
Is that a yes or a no?
That's of course. I tape virtually all my calls.
You tape virtually all your calls, do you?
Yeah. As Mike Wallace knows.